Hello again, and let's talk about Chapter 2 from Thompson et al. So this chapter is focused on organizational vision, mission, objectives, and strategy. So let's get going. So from this chapter, you're going to learn to understand why it's critical for a clear strategic vision of the organization and why that's so important. You're going to learn about the importance of setting strategic and financial objectives, as well as understanding why the strategic initiatives are taken at various organisational levels, and these must be tightly coordinated to the overall organisational strategy. We're going to learn about what a company must do to achieve operational excellence and to execute the strategy in a proficient manner. We're also going to learn about the role and responsibility of the board of directors in overseeing the strategic management process. So let's get going. All right. So what does strategy making and strategy executing process, what does that entail? It entails these 5 steps. So we begin with developing the strategic vision, mission statement, as well as a core set of values. Then we move to setting the objectives for the performance, and so that we can track the performance. Then we craft the strategy to move us along in terms of the goals and objectives that we've set. Then we're going to execute the strategy in an efficient and effective manner. And then the 5th step is that we monitor and evaluate along the way. So let's look at each of these 5 steps in more detail now. Stage 1. Develop the strategic vision, the mission statement, and a set of core values. So when we're developing the strategic vision, what we're doing is detailing the management aspirations for the organisation to the stakeholders. It's basically a directional statement on where are we going, who do we want to be in the future. So it sets out a rationale, and so that then it's grounded in justification, and we're using specific and distinctive language. So here's some do's and don'ts. Do be graphic. Paint a clear picture. Don't be vague or incomplete. Be forward-looking and directional. Don't dwell on the past. Keep it focused. Don't use broad language. Build in some wiggle room, so allow some flexibility in what it is that you're visioning for the future. And be careful of using uninspiring terms. Be sure the journey is feasible. Just because you can do it doesn't mean you should do it, but don't be generic in what you're saying. We need something that's distinctive to your particular organisation that you are representing or working with. Indicate why this strategy, this directional path, this vision makes good business sense. So in other words, provide justification. Don't rely on superlatives. And basically, we want to be specific in what we are saying. Make it memorable and keep it short and sharp. Don't make it long. So here's some examples. Vision statement for Whole Foods Market. It's a dynamic leader in the quality food business. We are mission driven and we aim to set the standards for excellence in food retailing. We're building a business on high standards that permeate all aspects of our company. Quality is a state of mind at Whole Foods. And it goes on about their motto and their ability. So, you know, it's too long and it's not memorable. But it is forward-looking, it is specific, and it does make good business sense. So that's for Whole Foods. Here's another example for Keurig. Keurig says that their vision statement is becoming the world's leading personal beverage systems company. Okay, so what's going on there? The good things is that it's focused and flexible and it makes good business sense, but it's not really telling you what's going on. It's lacking specifics and it's not forward-looking. So it's focused on being the world's leading personal beverage system, but what is that exactly? So it's lacking specifics in that way. Now, Nike says that they foster a culture of invention. We create products and services and experiences for today's athlete while solving problems for the next generation. And if you have a body, you are an athlete. So it's inspirational, it's forward-looking, it's flexible, but it's still kind of vague and it's lacking details. It's a bit generic, and is it feasible? Maybe a little too broad. All right, so here's an exercise that we're going to do in class. So I'm going to skip that slide for the minute. When we're communicating the vision, we want to foster employee commitment to the vision. So we've got to make sure that everybody's on board. We need to communicate the importance of this vision so that we're motivating, informing, and inspiring not only our employees, our internal stakeholders, but also our external stakeholders, customers, suppliers, governments. We want to demonstrate to top management, we want to demonstrate support from top management for this strategic vision. And that's really important when you're communicating the vision. You want to show that the leadership is on board with this. So when we're putting the vision in place, we need to write it out and distribute it. We need to hold meetings and consultations to discuss and explain, and especially the justification behind that vision. We want to create a memorable slogan so that the slogan captures the essence of the vision. We want to emphasize the positive payoffs for making this vision happen. So a well-communicated strategic vision matters because it crystallizes long-term direction. It reduces rudderless decision-making, so it actually enables strategic vision to be built into the daily decision-making process. It's a tool for winning support for the organisation so that members and stakeholders can help to make the vision a reality. It provides a beacon for lower-level managers in setting departmental objectives and crafting departmental strategies that need to be in sync with the overall organisational strategy. And it helps the organisation prepare for the future. When we're developing an organisational mission statement, we need to use specific language so that we give the organisation a unique identity. We want to describe the firm's current business and purpose. Who are we? What do we do? And why are we here? We want to focus on describing the firm's business, not on making a profit, but earning a profit is the objective, not the business, not the mission. The ideal mission statement identifies the company's products and services. An ideal mission statement specifies the buyers that need it to satisfy what their needs are. We want to identify the customer groups or markets that this mission statement is endeavouring to serve. We want to give the company its own identity that sets the organisation apart from the competition. And we want to clarify the firm's purpose and business to the stakeholders. We also need to understand how important it is to link the vision and the mission with the core values. So core values are the beliefs and the behavioural norms that employees are expected to display. And this, the core values become an integral part of the organisational culture. And we want to match the vision, the mission, the strategy, so that collectively they contribute to the organisational success. Here's the mission statement and core values from Tom's shoes. Tom states their mission as With every product you purchase, Tom's will help a person in need, one for one. And this mission is evident in the core values that are enacted within the organisation. So the mission is ingrained in our one-to-one business model. They lead with the story. Our mission and our purpose are the same thing. They communicate they communicate to ensure that customers know where they're doing more, that the customers know that they are doing more than just buying a product. They extended and adapt the one-for-one model to other product categories to support other causes, and they protect the success of that business model when they're bringing stakeholders into their fold. So then step 2, when we're setting objectives, the purpose of setting objectives is to convert that mission and that vision into specific, measurable, achievable, timeline-driven performance targets. We're focusing efforts and aligning actions throughout the organisation, and these objectives serve as a yardstick for performance and progress. These objectives also provide motivation and inspiration to employees to encourage them to enact what the vision is. So when we're setting objectives, we need to make sure that objectives are smart, measurable, motivating, and they include a timeline. We also need to consider that when we're setting objectives, there needs to be an element of stretch involved. So what that means is that firms need something that pushes them to be inventive, that increases their urgency to improve their performance and competitive position. The objectives cause the firm to be more intentional and focused in their actions, and these objectives create an exciting work environment and attract the best people. Objectives also help prevent internal inertia and contentment and complacency with modest gains. But we do need some caution in this regard. We need to set realistic stretch goals. They may have an element of stretch, but they still need to be realistic. They definitely need to be reachable and strongly coordinated in terms of organisational personnel. So make sure your stretch goals are realistic and not overly ambitious, because then we're setting ourselves up for failure. What kind of objectives to set? We want to set financial objectives and we want to set strategic objectives. So our financial objectives communicate top management goals in terms of what they want to achieve for financial performance, and they are also focused internally on the firm's operations and activities. So that's the financial objectives. We also want to set strategic objectives. Strategic objectives are the firm's goals that are related to market standing and competitive positioning. Strategic goals are also focused externally on competition. We want to set short-term objectives that focus on quarterly and annual performance, but we also want to set long-term objectives that force consideration on what's optimal for the long term. So it may not be profitable in the short term, for example, or it may be time-consuming or capital-intensive in the short term, but in the longer term, it may well be achieving an objective. We want to set long-term objectives to help pose a barrier to overemphasizing achieving just the shorter term. So here's examples of common financial objectives: an X percentage increase in annual revenues, annual increase in after-tax profit of X percentage, annual increases in earnings per share of X percentage, and the list goes on. The point is that these objectives are specific, they're measurable, and they include some form of timeline. Well, they should. Okay. Examples of common strategic objectives: winning X percentage market share, achieving lower overall costs than competitors, overtaking key competitors in terms of product performance or customer service standards, and again, the list goes on. All right, we need a balanced approach to setting objectives when we're setting objectives. So a balanced scorecard strives to place emphasis on achieving both financial and strategic objectives, and we're tracking each of those so that we know where we stand in the market. So there's 4 dimensions of a balanced scorecard: financial objectives, strategic objectives, internal objectives, and organizational objectives that concern human capital, culture, infrastructure, and innovation. Good strategic performance is key to better financial performance. So good financial performance is not enough. Current financial results are lagging indicators, and so they don't assure the development of competitive capabilities for delivering better financial results in the future. Setting and achieving strategic objectives signal improvements in the competitive situation for the organisation, but they also strengthen the position in the marketplace. Ongoing good strategic performance is a leading indicator of the firm's increasing capability to deliver improved future financial performance. So we want to set objectives for each organisational level. So we're going to have the overarching strategy, and then we have the goals that are set, and these, so the goals are set for financial performance and then strategic objectives, and then we break it down so that these objectives translate down into the units. So what we're doing is fostering lower level performance targets, and we're extending the top-down objective setting process throughout the organisation. So here's another exercise that we'll do in class about specific examples. Step 3, we're going to craft the strategy now, and here is where we look at a series of strategics. How do we do this? How do we make this happen? So this step requires choosing amongst strategic alternatives, and it promotes actions to do things differently from the competitors so that we're achieving some form of differentiation. It's a collaborative team effort that involves managers in various positions throughout the organisation. So we want everybody to be involved in crafting the strategy. So this includes, or maybe begins with, the Chief Executive Officer, and then we bring on board the senior objectives. And then down through the units, we're going to have the managers of subsidiaries and divisions and geographic regions involved as well. So we want corporate strategy, and this may well mean multi-business strategy, where we're gaining synergies across a portfolio, but we also want business strategy. So we're going down the hierarchy here. Business strategy strengthens our market position and competitive advantage. Business strategy is about building capabilities of business units and monitoring, aligning lower level strategies. All right, so we want to make sure everything's in sync, and we want to track it to make sure we stay on track. Then we go down into the functional levels. We need to add relevant detail to the hows of business strategy at the functional level. It's a game plan on implementation and the how-to. Then, as well as the functional area strategies, we need operational strategies. So here we're adding detail and completeness to the business and the functional strategies. So these 4 things work together because they each impact each other. So here's a graphic of what we've just talked about, the hierarchy of the strategy making. And these components of the company's strategy up and down the hierarchy should definitely be cohesive and mutually reinforcing. So now let's look at the elements of the firm's strategic plan: the strategic vision, mission and core values, as well as the financial and strategic objectives and the overall strategy itself. When we're executing the strategy, we need to convert our strategic plans into an action plan. We need to assign particular people to particular tasks that need to be done. We need to build and strengthen the firm's competencies and competitive capabilities. We need to create and nurture a strategy supportive work climate so that there's not contradictions going on in the workplace. We say this, but we do that. We need to out that. We need to make sure that we're tracking and meeting our performance targets. When we're managing this strategy execution process, we need to create a supportive structure. We need to staff the organisation with the necessary skills and expertise. We need to develop and strengthen our resources and our capabilities to support our strategy implementation. We need to allocate ample resources. We need to ensure that policies and procedures are facilitating strategy execution, and we need to organise our work efforts in best practice manner. We also need to install information and operating systems that enable the personnel to perform these essential strategic activities, and we need to motivate people by tying rewards and incentives to the achievement of the performance objectives. We need to create the organisational culture that's conducive to successful strategy execution, and that point is not to be taken lightly. We need to exert the internal leadership needed to propel the implementation forward. In stage 5, what we're doing is evaluating the performance and initiating corrective adjustments. So when we're evaluating performance, we decide whether the enterprise is passing the 3 steps of the winning strategy. Remember, we covered this in Chapter 1. It's a good fit. Does it help us achieve competitive advantage, and does it deliver on strong performance? We also need to initiate corrective adjustment if we see that our monitoring is telling us that we're going off track. We need to decide whether to continue or change the firm's vision and mission and the objectives, the overall strategy and the execution methods. You know, if it's not working, what needs to be fixed? We also need to apply these lessons based on organisational knowledge to date. And then we come to the role of the Board of Directors within this corporate governance. So the obligations of the Board of Directors include overseeing the firm's financial accounting and reporting practices, and we need to be compliant with GAAP principles. We need to critically appraise the firm's direction, strategy and business approaches. We need to evaluate the calibre of senior executives and strategic leadership skills. We need to make sure we've got the right people on board. And we need to institute a compensation plan that rewards the top executives for achieving the results that are set out. We also need to make sure that we're serving stakeholder interests, and especially shareholders. So to achieve effective corporate governance, we need a strong and independent board of directors. And a strong and independent board of directors is well informed about the organisational performance. They are able to guide and judge the CEO and other executives. They can curb management actions that the board believes is inappropriate or unnecessarily risky. They need to certify to shareholders that the CEO is doing what the board wants to be done. And the board of directors provides insight and advice to the top management. They're also intensely involved in debating the pros and cons of a particular strategic direction and decisions that are made. So Volkswagen gives us a very good example of corporate governance failure, and we'll be talking about that in class. So there you go, that's chapter 2, and thank you very much for your attention.